Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Product Analytics PM/UX Weekly. It is for the 14th of December. We have a handful of agenda items, so I'll kick us off. The first one is to review the sticky item, although this sticky has been there since last week and the week before that. So I wonder if there's anything ongoing that we still need to check out, or because most of this I think is covered by Rob's points lower in the agenda, where there's a question about like the left sidebar, and if there's anything we need to do to expedite that, will still help.
Yeah, let's cut the sticky for now.
Cool. Then last week's action items. Sam, I believe you had the first one to reply back on the sidebar issue with the menu items we agreed on. Just want to check if there's been any progress or any questions on that.
Yep, did that. We're going to talk about it with Rob's point.
Cool. And then I think Dennis had the next one to, what was it? Explore the naming direction and requirements of the query designer. I'm not aware of any updates there. I don't know if someone has. I actually think it is Dennis's read-only point. Great. So I'll do the read-only for this. Regarding the query designer, I pinged him to understand his vision and how that will fold back into experience that we're building, to see if we need to collaborate more and to clarify the scope. Quickly opening up that, but it seems like we can all just read this and post our thoughts there if we have any. On the query designer, it has recently been named to the widget designer. So that's been something that's happening in the MR review. I think that name fits a bit better than the query designer, since the thing that we're designing is actually visualizations. Now that I think about it, not widgets. So maybe that's feedback that I'll continue to give there.
Won't the designer, though, also have things like setting the title and stuff as well? So that would encapsulate the widget.
That is a good point. I don't know if we've thought about the UX flow of where, at which step or where.
Of course we haven't.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we haven't thought about here. At the moment, I don't even know if the title is part of what you enter in the current widget designer alpha version. And I don't know, to me, and what I had in my mind, just quickly talking like through my thoughts, is that you would make a visualization, then as part of the widget you could like select it and then type in a name or something. That those would be like two separate, like creation screens. But yeah, it's very early days, so
I guess if the idea is that we have shareable visualizations, which I think is sort of the concept that's been going for, having one visualization which gets used across multiple dashboards, then that makes sense. You go into the visualization query, whatever designer, create your visualizations, save those, then go into your individual dashboards and go, right, I want to drag that here, give this titles, have this date range across the dashboard, etc., and work off that basis. So it'd be more of a drag and drop experience on the dashboard, but the query designer wouldn't be necessarily associated.
Right, that's pretty much what I had in mind. There was some sort of like edit mode on dashboards where you could like drag a drop, or from a drop down select like which visualization should this widget use or something like that. But yeah, that's all, I guess, a UX flow that we still need to explore and validate. And
right. One of the other things I think we could explore is when you do the edit on the dashboard. Right now it has the add widget option. That should have like a drop down of widgets that are visualizations that are loadable. So that would be a way to kind of marry that concept of visualizations go in their own file, but it makes it easier to manage a dashboard.
Right. Unless anyone has more comments, I can jump onto my next agenda item. Cool. Seeing some nodding heads. I'll quickly share my screen for this one. Right. Can you all see my screen? some nodding heads. So I just quickly wanted to go through this slide that I made to show the dashboard regions that I'm going to share with the working, or would like to share with the dashboard working group. It's the call that I have right after this one. So, and also for a comparison, I just want to open up the issue where there's already some maps design out. So I just wanted to hear like if there's any feedback or anything else that should be noted on this. So what I have here is, we're following like the standard GitLab page design. If we have breadcrumbs, the dashboard title, then we have a filter section, which for now is going to be drop-downs, which have not yet been defined. The one thing that we know for sure we want is like a date range. And please correct me if I'm wrong on like any of this. And then below that, where we differ from all other GitLab dashboards, is that we have this customizable dashboard zone. And that inside of that, we have the concepts of a widget and a visualization. And where the widget is like the size, title, and position that you've placed a visualization into, and the visualization is the combination of a query and one of the predefined components that we've built. Yeah, so any thoughts or suggestions or changes to this?
Make it clear that this will be extended in the future. You might add another line item to possible components to say either ... etc. Just to indicate we won't only have line chart, data table, single stat, and bar chart, but we'll have additional visualization options in the future. But that's a pretty minor point. Overall, I think it looks pretty good.
Right, then I'll share this with the working group.
Just quickly, I thought I'd say two things. One, we're calling this product analytics, but this is also going to be used by Optimize. So I don't know if we want to raise that. Eventually, once they get groups functioning, then they're going to start using this system as well. The second point, it's a minor one, but the components threw me for a minute when I only read the right-hand side, and then I understood what you meant once I read the left. Naming is hard, but components is, I don't know what else to call them. Or how to differentiate them from the visualization widget, because it all sounds very similar. Anyway, that was my only other point.
Yeah, I'm naming this to like a provided component to now.
That makes it slightly clearer.
Okay, yeah, I'll give this some more thought. Hopefully I can think of a better name also before the call. And also ask the working group for feedback if they don't. To answer your original question about Optimize, I think what Dennis and I thought here was just to specifically share what product analytics as a group is working on and what we're thinking. The working group is aware that Optimize is looking at using this, and I'll also note it in the meeting. But they also have some different like naming conventions or nomenclature for some of the stuff. Like they're not using, I think, widgets, they're using panels, for example. So and this is why this is like alpha and subject to change, because like this is at the stage now where we're trying to get like a common nomenclature for like everything.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. The only reason I raised it is just because the customized dashboard is technically a shared component across the GitLab product. So anyone could start making use of it if they wanted to. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it right now, but they could. So that's the only reason why I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, maybe I can give this like the title, like the product analytics, I don't know, idea for customizable dashboards, or
concept. Dashboards concept.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a good enough one. Dashboard concept, and I'll note in the meeting that this is to be used by multiple groups, specifically Optimize. Cool. Thanks so much for the feedback, and yes, sorry about the link for sharing that. Yeah, that was my bad. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand in time. So I have a question, and I'm totally okay if the answer is that is to be defined. But I wanted you guys to fill me in regarding the filters, because we in the green rectangle there,
Mhm.
it says it looks like global filters for all of the widgets that we're going to have, but the filtering right now lives in the visualization layer, for, in the visualization definition. So yeah, I'm just wondering how do you guys envision this to work? And again, if this is not defined yet, that's totally okay.
My understanding.
Yeah, so the
Go ahead,
intention for this is that we'll have filtering available at a dashboard level like this, and that's going to propagate down to each of the individual widgets. One of the common workflows people do when they're interacting with the dashboard is they want to analyze the data set and have their filtering be applied to every single visualization in that single dashboard. It's really tedious to have to do the filtering for each individual dashboard one at a time. It's also a place where users get confused if, say, this bar chart is filtered to the last 6 months, but this line chart is filtered to the last 12 months. That's not always intuitive to people. They might get to the wrong conclusion. So we want this dashboard level filter to say, you can set the filtering mechanism here once, and it will affect all the different widgets that live on that dashboard for you automatically.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we might have a couple of challenges there on the technical side. Good challenges. I mean, nothing groundbreaking. But yeah, thank you for explaining.
Yeah, Axel, I think for a first iteration, technically like this is totally doable, because we're taking the global filter and then passing it down as an override to all the visualizations. The complexity starts when a widget also has an override on a dashboard. But that is for future iterations. And once again, that's a whole user thing that also needs to be explored, like UX. So Rob, looks like.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is in the schema discussion, there was a big conversation around overrides and querying and stuff. The general feeling that came out of that conversation is that the most likely scenario will be that we will have global filters, and then we'll have localized filters, but they might not overlap. We might have only filters that can be applied on the global level, but not on the local level. For instance, date might make no sense, might not make any sense to have on a localized widget. And to reduce technical complexity, we could just have two sets of filters, one that can be applied locally and one that can be applied globally, and ignore the whole override process. There might be some shared, something to be discussed and figured out in version 2.
Dennis and I have actually discussed this like in a one-on-one where we were just throwing some ideas around, and the thought came up where at like a visualization designing level, or when you're writing the config or inner documentation, that we would specifically specify that, hey, a date range with like a warning symbol is something that can be overridden from the dashboard level filter, so that a person, let's say if we have a customer's or a customer team where one person is creating visualizations and another one is using that in dashboard, so they're aware that the person creating it or creating the visualization is aware that the user of the visualization can override that date range. So that is just to stop like any or to help prevent confusions around like creating a widget, say, called users over the last 7 days, and then someone goes on a dashboard and extends the date range.
Understood. Yes.
Cool.
If you want to poke around and see some places where we at GitLab use it, I don't know if you have Sisense access, but if you look at some of the monthly active user dashboards, a lot of those respect the filter settings for the dashboard. But there are other dashboards, like I'm thinking of the compliance dashboard we built where date filters are ignored for other widgets. Because for some widgets, it was specifically hard-coded for a 12-month window, so date filtering doesn't make sense there. So it's really to provide the dashboard designer the tools they need to make whatever makes sense for whatever they're trying to actually communicate to the audience.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the context. Yeah, it's. I was actually thinking about that, about how the Sisense does. And yeah, I like Robert's idea about having like overridable filters and like static filters that are onto the visualization. That might be a good idea. But yeah, no, thank you for the context and for taking the time to explain.
We can also look at Grafana as well, because they do a decent job of applying date ranges and time ranges within a dashboard too. So I guess I've got the next point, but it's more or less going to be me saying to Sam this question. Is there anything we can do to help expedite that left sidebar discussion? It seems to be going into the sort of more down to product to resolve and come up with a compromise. But is there anything from a UX or an engineering, since you've got 3 engineers technically on the call, that we can do to help make your life easier in that discussion?
Yeah, and I'll be candid. I'm getting pretty frustrated with this discussion since we're just going in circles. It feels like at this point. I feel like what we were asked to provide is an explicit proposal to iterate on. We did that, and now we're being asked to give another proposal that Optimize agreed with, even though they agreed with our original idea. So the original idea being, we have product analytics and GitLab analytics split out. So I need to reply to that. Something I could use from you all, with your UX hats on, if there is another proposal idea that we have, I'd love to hear that to try and push this over the line. I'm going to write a reply to Nick and Tori to hopefully explain this as something we're considering blocking because we have nowhere to put our stuff right now. But what I think we should also be doing in parallel is figure out, is there a smaller step we can do with one of the existing menus if we're going to get this much pushback on putting an actual left sidebar item in? I can appreciate that we need somewhere to put funnel analysis and experimentation, but we don't have those today. Those don't exist yet. So at a minimum, what we need is somewhere to put the dashboard screen, the configuration screen. And I think if we can think through where could we put those temporarily before we can get the sidebar discussion resolved, that would help us unblock ourselves for getting something out there. Whether that's the configuration just lives at the instance level for a little while longer, which is where it currently is my understanding, before we move it down to project level, or if we move that to a project setting specific page instead, or if we put the dashboards under the analytics tab temporarily again, I'd be open to that. But I think we need to also think of a short-term proposal for where do we put this stuff, because I continue to get the sense this discussion is going to go on for several more weeks before we can get everyone aligned after a few different phone calls. And I don't want us to slow down shipping our first internal release on this discussion, because wherever we put things for the first time, it's not going to be the last time that we get to visit that decision. We can always move things around. We just need to put them somewhere so you can actually click into our offering as opposed to hard-coded URLs. So that's a long way of me saying I'm planning on writing a reply to them. I could use your all's help if there are other proposals, or if you want to put your UX hats on and reply there as well. And finally, we need to start exploring what is a short-term solution to be able to put these in the menus somewhere, with the expectation that we're going to move these eventually once we get aligned on the left sidebar overall topic.
In terms of settings, we can leave it on the instance level. We need to move it at the point that we start allowing users to set up their own stacks rather than using ours, which isn't part of the internal preview, but is part of the customer preview. So for this first phase, we're okay just leaving it as is. Regarding the other things, I feel like we've had this discussion, maybe the last meeting or the meeting before, around where to put it in the left-hand menu, whether we could put it under analytics, under the projects, like initial left-hand menu options. I'd be okay with sticking it under analytics, but it would mean things like the query designer would need to be a separate button, not its own page. And we wouldn't have anywhere for funnels or anything like that just yet, unless we had some internal button selection somewhere on the main dashboards list.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. This won't scale once we start adding funnels, experimentation, etc. But we need to have some way to get there before we move to that, because we're going to have the dashboarding functionality completed before we move on to the funnel functionality, right? So we don't necessarily want to gate the two together.
Then in that case, I think sticking it under product under the existing analytics heading makes the most sense on a superficial level. It's just going to be super confusing once, but once customers start using it, because there is such a distinction between what we're doing and what Optimize are doing.
Sure. Well, so I would reframe it as this is what we need to do.
Okay.
This is what we need to do to have things available internally. This is likely not where it's going to live once we get this to, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we're asking you to pay us money for this. This will be the first iteration that we're going to revisit once we get the agreement with UX about what the proper sidebar solution is. If that distinction makes sense.
Yeah, and it's going to be behind the feature flag.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I left a comment there on that discussion a while ago when the proposals have not been that discussed. I mean, the discussion were still heated, for putting a word. So yeah, my idea was, let's get one of the proposals and create an MR and see it live and maybe try to push that forward. So maybe we can try to do this again now that the discussions are more refined. But yeah, I mean, if you can maybe answer that thread and take a decision of which proposal could we make into an MR, then maybe we can call our bias for action and actually do it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in terms of where my head's at currently, since I think this discussion, like I said, is gonna take a while. I think putting the product button under analytics for now is our best way to bias for action to move something forward while we figure out the bigger picture here.
Yeah, totally, and it is easier to put behind a feature flag without much technical considerations there, like adding a new element.
I also don't think we need Foundation's approval to add something to a sub menu either. So we can add it to analytics as long as is it Heim, the product manager? That's dealing with
Optimize, yes.
Yeah, as long as they're okay with us sequestering a section, a sub item from them, then yeah, let's go with that. Leave settings where it is. But it is definitely something we're going to have to make sure we've tackled before we hit customer preview in the new year.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that sounds like we have a plan on that for the short term. A related but different question about the settings page. I was looking through the left sidebar menu, and do we have settings for other capabilities here, or should we actually think about moving that under the settings page? I only was able to find configuration for security and compliance, but all the other settings are under settings. Like, what do you all think? Does it make sense to do settings under our analytics section, or should we put it under the project settings area?
Half of it is half of a dozen of one, six of another. If I recall, the reason security and compliance got moved was because their configuration started to get quite complicated, and it didn't necessarily fit into just a section. Like if you actually go into security and compliance, you'll see that they've got all of these for security testing, and then their compliance, license compliance configurations and vulnerability. So it starts to get a lot more, and there's more, I think, behind flags as well. So, you know, there's more information that they're providing than just a standard setting. Right now, ours could fit under a settings area, but if we wanted to move like the tracking codes, configuration setup, and all of that, like we discussed, into a configuration screen, then we would want to have a separate page. But for now, it'd be like for the initial iteration in customer, when we move to customers, then I think just sticking it under a settings region in projects would be okay, personally.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Thanks for talking through that. I mean, maybe it even sounds like we have both at some point. We have the configuration for your app versus your cluster configuration. Oh, and we're at time, so we can wrap here. Thanks for